What's good, y'all? So, Planet Fitness seems to have gone full Bud Light. Illegal aliens are running roughshod all over the country, and the people in charge are just shrugging, saying, things happen. We got a lot to get into, so let's get after it. Planet Fitness has gone full Bud Light, full predator protection mode. And as of now, they have lost about 400 million bucks in value. Um, it's bounced back a little, but it's still right around 400 million. And I'm actually surprised they actually got to 400 million because they already had a reputation of being a woke company. They already had their woke bona fides. But let's take a look at what got them into trouble this time.
Good morning at 8 degrees below zero in Fairbanks, Alaska. Day 2 of Planet Fitness saga. I came in Monday. There's a man in the women's locker room shaving. A little girl sitting in the corner. She could have been 12 years old. I don't know how old she was. In a towel. Kind of freaked out that there's a man shaving in her locker room. Well, I was offended. I took a picture of him and I asked him, why are you there? You're a man with a penis. Why are you in the women's locker room? And he justified by saying, I'm queer LGB. And I said, you shouldn't be in the women's locker room. Well, I left. And as I said this morning, I got canceled. Planet Fitness is defending the man in the women's locker room, the man with the penis, rather than the child sitting in the corner with a towel wrapped around her. So people, I just want you to know, this is weird. It's not good. It's rather disturbing. So I would like for you women to stand up and have a voice and stop the shenanigans. You have authority. Use your authority. I took that picture because I felt like I was in an unsafe space. But I just want to tell Samantha and Joe that work there and own it, thank you so much for canceling my membership. You saved me the trip. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
I'm gonna elaborate on that video here in a second, but take a look at the statement that they put out on this incident. As the home of the judgment-free zone, Planet Fitness is committed to creating an inclusive environment. Our gender identity non-discrimination policy states that members and guests may use the gym facilities that best align with their sincere, self-reported gender identity. The member who posted on social media violated our mobile device policy that prohibits taking photos of individuals in the locker room, which resulted in their membership being terminated. Oh my goodness. Two things I want you to notice about that statement. First, they're claiming that they want to create an inclusive environment for everyone, but they're discriminating against every woman and girl who uses that facility for the sake of one gender deluded, gender confused, mentally ill individual. How is that inclusive? That is the very definition of exclusive. And there may be more gender deluded dudes who go to that gym based on the policy. There probably are, but this is the only one we know of so far. But anyway, that brings me to the second point, which is sincere, self-reported gender identity. Gender identity is not a thing. Genesis 5:2, male and female created he them and blessed them. But self-reported, how would they know if something self-reported is sincere or not? And so what if it is? all that means is this person is mentally unstable. And all some predator has to do is walk into a facility, say, yeah, I'm a girl today, and he has free reign in the women's locker room and restroom areas. And yes, I said predators. I used that word purposefully. There was a study in Canada where 48% of the gender confused men who believe that they're women or are claiming to be women housed in women's prisons have at least one conviction for a sexual offense. And in Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, that number is over 50%. And in the UK, that number is over 70%. And the pervert apologists are saying that there's no evidence to support the belief that these are predators who are putting these women in danger. It's not, there's no need for concern according to these people, which is why they are housing these men in these women's prisons. And then when these things happen, if they report it at all, they have the Mara Healy attitude about it and just shrug and say, things happen. If you belong to a gym that allows this, you need to cancel your membership, and you need to not let your wives or your daughters have memberships to these facilities. Do not let them patronize these dens of iniquity. And while we're on that subject, if your daughters compete in athletics, whether it's in school or some organization outside of school, and they allow this madness, you need to pull them out. You need to pull them out. There was not too long ago, there was a 50-year-old dude in Canada who was competing in a swim meet against teens and preteen girls. And the only person who stood up for those girls in that competition was a reporter from Rebel News who caught up with the guy. And then because he didn't want to be interviewed, he ended up getting chased from the venue. Most of the predators in this situation are sexual predators, but USA Boxing is allowing these gender diluted dudes to compete in the ring against women. Remember, what was his name? Fallon Fox in the UFC. He was a dude who caved in the faces of a couple of women. I think he even retired them, or at least one of them. He's a predator. He is a predator. And any of the dudes who think that they're or claim to be women and get in the ring and fight actual women, they're predators as well. They are predators as well. And we can go on down the list. There was the volleyball player in North Carolina who is suffering permanent injuries now as a result of getting a volleyball spiked in her face by a dude pretending to be a girl. And there was a track athlete in New Hampshire not too long ago who just won the championship. And the most famous, obviously, Billy Thomas and Riley Gaines. And the list just goes on, because these apologists, these pervert apologists, are allowing this. What they're doing, they're basically saying men make better women than women do, and women who want to compete just need to try harder. Because according to them, men who believe that they're women and claim to be women are women. It makes no sense. And my point in all this is that we need to step up and not allow this madness to continue. More men need to step up and say, not today, Satan, not today. Now, I mentioned Mara Healy, and I suppose I should elaborate on that. She is the governor of my former state, Massachusetts. And recently, I believe it was just earlier this month, an illegal alien was charged with raping a 15-year-old disabled girl up there. He's an illegal alien from Haiti. He was brought over here on one of the charter flights that the Biden administration is using to facilitate the invasion. I believe it's part of the parole program or some such nonsense. And I think this guy had been deported once before. I may be mistaken about that. I could be mixing it up with another illegal alien who was convicted or who committed one of these horrific crimes. We know hundreds of them who have committed these crimes have been previously deported. So maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. The point being, he's not supposed to be here. And he committed a horrific crime. Anyway, Maura Healey claimed that he had been vetted and they saw no red flags. There were no issues with his being admitted into the country. But now a 15-year-old girl has been raped. And she was raped in a state-run illegal alien shelter. And her response was, things happen. Check it.
You know, unfortunately, we have security and systems in place. We have vetting in place. It is unfortunate that you know, from time to time things will happen.
What is that? What is that? How does she think that girl and her family feel hearing the governor of the state responsible for their safety in this facility saying things happen? This is just another in a long line of examples of why we need to come back to God, because a healthy, sane society that fears God would not respond that way. They just would not respond that way. They would be trying to do everything they could to prevent it, first of all, and then if these things do happen, they would be doing everything they could to put this person under the jail. And if they're an illegal alien, ship them back out. And if the state or locality or whatever was willing to foot the bill for his incarceration and punishment, okay, fine. But to just shrug and say, these things will happen? No sane society that fears God would allow that to happen, or would stand for that happening. But these days it's just par for the course. And this is the same governor, by the way, who suggested that families sponsor illegal aliens in their homes. And we can only assume that if something like this were to happen with one of the families who has sponsored one of these illegal aliens, and they ended up raping their daughter or wife or mother or whatever, that her response would be the same. Things happen. Sick. Now, since we're on that subject, let's talk about this guy.
Mi gente, he pensado invadir una casa en United States, ya que me enteré que existe una ley que dice que si una casa no está habitada, podemos expropiarla.
All right, that's enough of that. I'm sure you've seen or heard by now about this guy who was telling people on TikTok that if they go into somebody's house and take over and live there while they're on vacation or just out, whatever, that they can basically just steal your home and the homeowner has no recourse. And I mean, forget home title theft. I mean, they can just, outright steal your home. And you have absolutely no recourse in some of these states. They just arrested a woman in New York for changing the locks on an illegal alien who took over her home. And when she changed the locks, they called the cops and they arrested her. Again, a sane, healthy, God-fearing society would never allow that to happen. Yet here we are. But he went on to give instructions. It was in Spanish, and there were captions, and I'm sure you can find it. I'm not going to bother posting it on our channel. But there were captions, and he basically gives instructions on, and he's got several videos apparently of instructions on how to steal people's homes. And one of the things he said was, if it's in, you can just claim that it's in poor condition, claim to do some repairs, and then you can even sell the house, according to this guy. And I don't doubt that in places like San Francisco, New York, Chicago, some of these other dark blue left-wing hellholes, that's true. They can just steal your home like the government steals the money out of your paycheck every week. And that's a whole other topic that we don't have time to get into today. But this message is for everyone, but men in particular. Your home is your castle, and you are responsible for the safety and security and well-being of your family. And I'm going to assume that if you're watching this, you are a supporter of the Second Amendment. And if you're not, I strongly urge you to reconsider that position. Because the government right now is basically using that movie, The Purge, as an instruction manual. The Summer of Love 2020, that was a trial run. That was a trial run to see how far they could push us, how much they could take before we would push back. And they saw between that and all the nonsense with COVID that most people, I won't say most, a plurality of people are just willing to do whatever. They're just willing to take it. They let criminals out on the street. They're allowing illegal aliens. They're not only allowing, they're aiding and abetting illegal aliens in their invasion. And now they're saying that if someone breaks into your home and starts living there, well, then you just have to go to court to get them out because they have more rights than you do. And then a judge just ruled not too long ago that illegal aliens have a right under the Second Amendment to carry firearms. What? It's truly mystifying. It's truly mystifying, and that brings me actually to something else that I actually found pretty interesting. Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat presidential candidate and a former Democrat congresswoman from Hawaii. She was a darling of conservatives for a while, even before she left the Democrat Party and became an independent. But she said something last week that is probably going to renew interest in her by a lot of conservatives, and she is reasonable. She's more reasonable, even though I still think she's a Democrat. She is more reasonable than most Democrats. And she always claimed to be a supporter of the Second Amendment. But this right here is something new. Check it out.
Now, I grew up here in Hawaii, where, as you probably know, it's one of the most restrictive gun ownership states in the country. I certainly didn't grow up in any kind of gun culture or things like some of my friends and your friends, or they grew up around guns ever since they were kids. I probably shot a pistol with my dad a couple of times and didn't touch a rifle until I joined the military. I've always held the position that I support the Second Amendment and understood our intrinsic right as humans to defend ourselves and to defend our loved ones. I got to tell you, as time went on, and I spent a lot of time, especially over my campaign for president and the years since, with a lot of folks in New Hampshire and Iowa and different parts of the country who had a very different experience than I did growing up. And they raised a lot of concerns around some of the things that throughout my time in Congress had all been coined as, well, this is common sense gun safety laws. This is well-intentioned in order to try to make sure that our communities are safe. That's a pretty compelling argument. But as with many things in Washington, as you know well, once you start peeling back the surface, you can understand that for a lot of folks who are using those words, they don't have good intentions at all. Their real objective is to try to get rid of the Second Amendment and take away our right to own firearms and our right to defend ourselves. And even more pointedly, our founders intended the Second Amendment to be a check on the abuse of power by a tyrannical government.
Wow. That is wild coming from a Democrat. And yes, the thing I said before, I still believe she is a Democrat, despite her protestations to the contrary. But this particular message coming from her is pretty compelling. And I bring this up not because it's some revelation and I believe that Tulsi Gabbard is now a conservative or anything like that. I bring this up because this is her new message on the Second Amendment. And the point isn't whether or not she's really conservative, but the point is the people who she's potentially reaching with this message. Leftists tune out everything we say about the Second Amendment. And those leftists who tune everything out that we say may be persuaded to see things in a different light when this message is coming from her. Now, there are probably some who never liked her because she did have some conservative viewpoints on some things. She was never, as hardcore left as she was never in lockstep with them, which I did give her credit for. But some of the people who we just simply can't reach she may be able to reach them and bring them around to our way of thinking on this subject. Now, I don't think I can ever trust her in any real way, because she's, like I said, she's still a Democrat, or at least I think she's still a Democrat. She still has like I said, she's more reasonable than a lot of her former Democrat colleagues, but her stance on abortion is not in line with mine, and not in line with any true Christian, because we're hardcore pro-life. Life begins at conception, no exceptions. That's not her position. So there's that, and then there's her association with what's been described as an abusive cult, which she's a Hindu, and she's been involved with this cult, and I can't remember the actual name of the organization, the sect that she was involved in, but it's an offshoot of the Hare Krishnas, and it's been described by people who have left it as an abusive cult. And so there's that. But her stance on the Second Amendment, I can get behind. I think she's absolutely right on that. And if this is her true position, and this is what she's what she's preaching to her fellow lefties, maybe she can bring some of them around to see the light. Here's praying, especially when you consider everything that is happening in the country right now, when you have an invasion of our southern border and squatters taking over people's homes and criminals just running rampant all over these blue cities. And there's all kinds of other things we can get into, which I don't really have time to right now because I'm I'm way over what I thought I would be right now. So I'll just leave you with this. I'm going to paraphrase a Christian rapper, Tyson James, based on everything that we've talked about here today. If you're not a gun-toting Bible thumper, you better make friends with some so that they can pray for you and you can get a revelation, because the madness that is happening right now is truly mind-boggling. And as a result, the mission before us is clear. So let's get after it.